Hi everyone, we are ready for another show. Today I receive Doug Lynner talk about Synapse magazine, tonalities and the other things, and also Serge Modular. Alright, launch a generic. Oh, hi Doug.
Great to be here.
Right, generic. So here today I'm with Doug Lynner. Hi Doug, again.
Hello Franck, how are you?
Doing great. I see on the stream I've got Peter Brahman, I've got Alphaster, and I've got Malaki. Right.
Hello to them.
Malaki says kids are talking to the screen and say hi. All right.
Hello.
Hi to Malaki kids. And I've got Alphaster who's here, who also telling me he's moderating the Colin Bander stream also. I think Alphaster is doing some multitasking. And Peter Brochman on Facebook. Hello everyone.
Hello.
So I wanted to talk a little bit first on the news side. Yesterday was a Bandcamp day, June 5. They do that every month now on the first Friday of the month, where they waive their fees, and so that more money can go to the artist. What I saw yesterday is M.0 has released a new album, Back to Form. It's on Bandcamp. Let me give you the link on the chat. You can look at it. For streaming, yes, Alphaster. What I've seen also is Robert Rich has been releasing an album. I think that was last week. I think also the cover is one of his mushroom painting, so quite nice. And yeah, M.0 and Robert Rich is it's Name Your Price album, really nice. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is Malaki was here. Is in a new label with a couple of artists. Before I show you all the artists, I have intro. So this is Error Grid record. There's a few of artists. I'm not sure to do all the name. Class, Tate, Nandel, Modect, Snakes of Russia, Sleep Clinic, Malaki, and Defanix. Right. Awesome. More. John O'Well's The Future. So it's a collective of artists they put together and are releasing some music together, mainly on the noise side. If I'm saying something wrong, Malaki, I see you're on the chat, so please correct me. I posted also the link. I saw Caroline join, Darwin Arts. Darwin Arts is saying hi to you, Doug.
Yes, great to see you here.
I guess you know each other.
Yes, indeed. Maker of Trilobite and other wonderful things.
Awesome. What else I wanted to talk about? So yes, it's. Sorry. I'm doing this stuff with support from my Bandcamp supporters. So if you want to join this list of names, just go to my Bandcamp page and be part of my community. It's a bit of Patreon style. I've got entry point, which is way cheaper than the Bandcamp. So that was the plug. Also, there's a couple of events. So first, Resonant Frequency was supposed to be this Sunday. They cancelled it. I think they want to do something which is related to the current event. But however, we've got Resident on Tuesday. There's quite a cool lineup already. There's Manifold Theory, Lenny Maker at Oleon. You've got M.0 Maurice Jackson. Told you that he just released an album yesterday. And I've got Justin and Manifold Theory, and I've got a slot for 2 more if you want to join the party. So it will be a watch party. You create a music video, give me the link. You publish it on YouTube as unlisted. Fill up the form with a link. I put all that together, and we have a watch party with. And once it's done, then you can release the video. Okay. All right, Malaki say I'm good. Say hi to Doug. And hello. I've got also, yeah, I've got Manifold Theory too. So I've got Doug. So let me show you. I don't know. I think your website, Neat Noise.
Neat Noise. Yes, I was feeling very illiterate, as in alliteration that day. So. Neat Net Noise just seemed to make sense.
That's cool. I see also there's your last release. Also, you've been working with Quack or Arduck, Bloop and Quack. You are doing also some radio at KZSU.
Yes. Well, Al Arduck and I did the Bloop and Quack show there for, I think, just about 2 years or so. He is continuing there. A time change in the schedule made me drop out of it, but he's continuing. And that's a great radio station. It does other wonderful things like the Day of Noise every February. So it's a cool place. Very supportive of us. And and thank you, of course, for showing the website. That is where I've been putting my own releases and releases that I'm involved with, like Arduck, although I think often about adding some other stuff there. So maybe this is a good time to say that out loud. We'll see what happens.
Yes, indeed. And I just pasted the link to the website chat. So maybe I should start by my, I don't know, usual entry question. So, Doug, who are you?
Who am I? Well, I have been doing this for a long time, and when I say this, I mean electronic music and modular music for a long time, and it's so long that it seems like it's really a DNA level part of me, and so it's really part of who I am. It's not all of who I am. I've been a chef, and I've worked in publishing Synapse magazine, for instance, but I also published in the medical world and so forth. And so I've kind of always been a person who's interested in communicating and interested in community. And so Synapse was an early manifestation of community in the electronic music world. And of course, it's all grown up a lot since then, hasn't it?
Yes, indeed. We are. So I wanted to show your Bandcamp. So if you want to get some Doug's music, your album Pulse, Up and Down, and Tonalism, but also I think that's recent creation, relatively recent. There is also Yes,
well, yeah, the Bandcamp is a cool thing, and you mentioned Bandcamp earlier and Robert Rich, and that he's using a pricing model that they allow there, which is to pay what you want to pay. And I saw some discussion of his online about that, and I was interested in his experience, which I gather was positive, because when Bandcamp first did its waive the fee day a couple or 2, 3 months ago, I decided a little bit before that to start offering everything there on NeedNet Noise on a pay as you wish level. I consider it more of a take some, leave some, because that's what really happens, is that many people will leave more than they would have to pay normally. And some people take it as a gratis, and that's cool because, not everybody can afford to pay, and some people value it differently than others. And I think it all works out in the long run. So I was happy to see Robert's experience was also positive. And I've left all of the stuff on that pricing model on a take some, leave some sale. So please go there and take some or leave some as you wish.
Yeah, I like the Bandcamp model because there's Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, etc. But I tend to find that there is a community. The people that are on Bandcamp is a community that are more willing to support the artist. I like the convenience sometimes of Spotify because I just have it. I can play on my commute or whatever. But also Bandcamp, but people that are coming here to support the artist.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that when you see a list of music media, it doesn't include Bandcamp normally if it's in the car, or if I'm looking on Google and I see every place that I am listed by Google, it lists every place but that. And that's a real shame because it is the site that really does the most to support musicians. And but it's the old distribution problem. We have to find people and get them there to listen to it. And so, in that way, not much has changed. But Bandcamp is a really great place, a really great model for the internet distribution of music.
I don't know. We are going to sideline. I had a quick look at that, and it seems to also that Bandcamp is lacking such API. So, if you give me your name and your album, then there's an API on Spotify, YouTube, etc. And then it will give you exactly the link to the record. But when you are in Bandcamp and you automatically search for an album, it's very hard for the system to find it. So that's why you've got the list of everything except Bandcamp, because they can't identify the album and artist very quickly and say, so there's a little bit of both sides. They need to make it easier for people to index the music.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I was not aware of exactly why that was. And that's certainly a detraction from it. But still, I know for myself that although Spotify does figure in my online presence as represented by numbers of listens and downloads and purchases and things, none of the other things do so much, meaning none of the other things other than Spotify and Bandcamp. And Spotify, although it is a different kind of a model and certainly not as fair to artists as Bandcamp, it certainly does more than any of the other platforms to support artists in terms of the ways to interface with it and use the numbers and so forth. So it's always a mixed bag.
Yes, indeed. I'd like also to mention your YouTube channel. So if you want to see Doug in action with Serge Modular, there's a paste the link. Maybe there's a can't see, but there's not. I pasted the link to the channel. There's not an easy link yet, but the one I could find.
It's youtube.com/C/Doug Lynner, I think, something like that. Whatever their convention is, it has my name.
All right. Right. So I wanted to.
Yes, there, there are performances, many over the last number of years, and some interesting stuff there. Uh, Also, there's a very large body of tutorial videos, and they've been very useful to people in the Serge community, but also in the larger uh, modular community, because the ideas that are expressed there aren't limited to Serge modules, although in some certain cases uh, they are rather uniquely suited to them. But still, it's a broader concept, and there's lots of them. I don't really know how many videos I have there. I forgot long ago, but
I can't see it quickly, but yeah, no. Looks like to be but to see a lot of a lot of videos there. I saw that Mariana has joined. I'm just checking if I miss anybody. So if you're on the channel, on the chat, please say hi. If you're listening, please say hi. I like to know who are the people listening to the show, and I like also to give some shout out. If you've got any question for Doug, please type them in the chat and I will relay, or if you have any comment. I'm reading the chat, so let's make it a conversation with you. And yes, as I'm at it, don't forget to click the subscribe, the follow, the like, everything, so that the risk can grow. Also, Dylan Sang also joined, also known as Mr. Unruly or Dylan 909, if I'm not mistaken.
Wonderful. Welcome.
So you were talking about Serge. So when did you meet Serge for the first time?
Well, it would be, I think 1974. It could be 1973. It was at CalArts, and it was when he came there. I was also there as a student, and I was there from 73 and graduated in 75. And so in that time period, I think it was 74, but could be 73, I met Serge, and I was introduced, of course, to the concepts that he was embodying in his designs. My knowledge of them became quite a bit more complete over time, but right away, although I wasn't one of the people who was building a Serge there using his kits and under his direction, I was aware of what was going on, and I was very interested in it. And what happened was that I ended up being the first person to order a Serge from Serge as a company. And I have that system right here, and I still use it to this day. And it's been well updated, but it's a remarkable system in many ways, of course, that Serges are, but it's very remarkable that it's still working great, still looks great, still sounds great, and all this time later. It's been well cared for.
So you're talking about, I always struggle to say name, Serge Chernyapin? How do you say his last name?
Serge Trepnet?
Yes. I'm always confused. I've never heard his last name. I read it, but I don't know how to say it. So.
Trepnet, yes.
Right.
Well, yeah, it doesn't get mentioned often, does it? He's like Cher. You know?
Yeah, and that's I don't know. I've spoken to him a few on chat, so I've never spoken to him live. I think he's somewhere around. He lives somewhere around Paris. No, it was his family is originally from Russia. They moved to France, and then he moved to California, Alhards. And
well, his father's side was Russian, and his mother's side was Chinese. And she was I'm pretty sure I'm remembering correctly that she was a violinist, and his father and grandfather, of course, were well-known Russian composers. So it comes from a very interesting cultural and musical background.
Yes, indeed, and also Serge, the Serge company and Serge came to San Francisco and set up shop just across Robot Speak for a couple of years. I think that was somewhere in the 80s. I've got Dylan who's asking, so I've seen you performing on Surge, but what do you say? What's the difference, or what do you like with Surge versus the modern Eurorack? What do you see? Or Surge? It's not a competition, but how do you say how the philosophy of Surge is slightly different from Eurorack?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I do have Eurorack Serge, but I know, of course, the question is really about other Eurorack, the more common Eurorack. The reason primarily that I've stuck with Serge is that I lucked out. I got into and made a choice to use a system that has turned out to be viable all of this time. So the use of the Serge is not so much a comment on other things. There weren't a lot of other things at that time, but the other things were like ARPs and Moogs, and then going down a little less in popularity. There were many others, but it's not like today. So I chose a synthesizer back in the 70s that was really different and has turned out to have incredible legs, so to speak. It is still valuable. It's still copied. It's still made, but in various forms by various licensed manufacturers. And so I haven't felt a great need to go elsewhere. I really like the Eurorack format. I really like the size of it, and I really like my Eurorack Serge equipment. And I enjoy very much other Eurorack equipment, and I have a good deal of experience using other Eurorack equipment with my students. And there's tons and tons of wonderful things out there. But for me, um, I don't feel a great need to work with equipment when I'm still getting so much out of what I have.
And I think this is the Eurorack Surge that you've got just in front of you.
Yes, these boxes here are they're LB Eurorack Serge versions. And I've worked with Serge and LB, Lori Bidoff at LB on this some years ago. And I enjoy this particular version, although there are others and they're all quite excellent. But this one works very well with my existing legacy Serge because LB builds these in banana format. And that means that everything from my old to my new speaks without any need for translation between each other. And of course, it makes it not as able to be integrated into the more common Eurorack world. But still, for me, it's a great thing because it's miniaturized and updated the modules. And I've taken it, for instance, last summer over to Sweden, and it worked very well. I took 2 boxes over there. I was able to do a very nice concert there. So it's been a really great addition. I love the Eurorack. And in terms of the non-Serge, it's all wonderful. It's all lovely, too, because there's so much stuff going on. But again, I say for myself, and this is only for myself that I'm speaking, and it's not a comment on anything else, I'm still getting so much out of what I have that I'm just not that motivated at this point to find other paradigms, so to speak. This is still working for me.
Yes, I don't know, I find it also. I built my modular case and now it's kind of built, and I'm not looking at new module as I used to add empty space. If I need a new module, it's a long reflection about do I really need it or do I continue to that have.
Yeah. I can't though, Franck, emphasize enough how lucky I was in a way, because now and for recent times, if somebody came in and was interested in the modular world, they have so much more work to do and so many more module approaches, etc., to uh, explore and really understand, hopefully, that than I did. That it takes a lot more work to decide what should be in that box that you finally decide on.
Yes, yes. I guess we bought the usual 3-4 module that allow you to make a sound, and then started to which module I like and which one I, not that they are
Mm-hmm.
bad, but they don't fit my workflow or style. That allowed me to help to choose what should be the next module. Um, so you say you were in Calhart. I guess it was in Los Angeles, I suppose.
Yes, it's north of Los Angeles downtown by a couple of little valleys or big valleys, but yes, it's in Los Angeles County and it's in that area. And of course, that's where Morton Subotnick was teaching, Jim Tenney was teaching, Hal Budd was teaching, um, and then also some very interesting people in the non uh, avant-garde and experimental music world, but in world music were there too. Even Ravi Shankar was on this faculty the first year that I was there.
Cool. Yeah, and I think Martin went there just at the end of the San Francisco Tape Music Center,
Mm-hmm.
if I recall. I You also, so I guess later you it seems, if I look at the timing, you started be part of a Synapse magazine.
Yeah. Well, from Cal Arts, I kind of had two channels of activity, so to speak. One was Synapse eventually, and that happened in 1976. And I graduated from Cal Arts in 75, so it was soon thereafter. But also at the same time, I was working, putting out records, with, especially with a person that I knew from Cal Arts. His name was Bryce Robley. And with Bryce, I first had a group called Lem, and then after that, a group called Mobius. And at the same time, I was developing the magazine Synapse. And as I say, I started with that in 76. The whole magazine started in 76 as well. But there were actually two issues of it that were more of a pamphlet sized approach. And the magazine, the 8.5 full size magazine that people are aware of, is the one that where I began with it. I purchased it from the original people.
Right. And yeah, so you started to put them back, the old issue, on your site. Read some of them, and recently, death of a Kraftwerk member, I read the interview with Kraftwerk, and you had you were lucky, or people passing by Los Angeles and doing concert, and you interview quite a few pioneer of electronic music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were positioned very well as a magazine to grab people as they went by, so to speak. And of course, a lot of people uh, came to LA and took up residence there during that period as well. Um, so we were very fortunate. We had good relationships with record companies because we were one of the only ways to promote those kinds of acts and albums that they had. And that's actually what happened with Kraftwerk, is that we were contacted by their label, and they were just really quite hungry to find some way to promote them, because it was very difficult to promote them in the other media of the time, things like Crawdaddy and Rolling Stone and so forth. They would get coverage, but certainly not the kind of coverage that we ended up giving them with the front cover. And so they were very excited about that. And that was another thing that really helped Synapse, is that we were where a lot of the major record labels were located.
And also what is nice in the magazine is that there is a few circuits to explain you how to make various noise or filter or...
Yeah. We really attempted to kind of offer a full menu, so to speak, for people interested in electronic music. And part of that is the DIY ethic. And at the time, that was not really very known in the musical sense. There were a few things that were being put out, but there was a great burgeoning of the DIY movement underway, including things like PAIA, and as a very big example, Serge offered kits in this time period. Many people did. So we tried to look at not only all the ways that you could become involved in electronic music, but we also tried to look at all the ways that you could make electronic music, and we tried to look at all the kinds of music that could be made with it, with those instruments. So we tried to be a kind of agnostic vehicle for the field. And so I remember one issue we had Stockhausen and Tomita sharing the cover. I guess that about epitomizes what I'm saying. Nowadays, we have a Facebook page that's associated with my website's archive of the magazine. So if you go to neatnetnoise.com/synapse, you'll find the continuing archive. It's not finished being established yet. We're putting it up issue by issue, because over at Facebook in the group, we are talking about each one and really getting deep into the history of electronic music there. And of course, not everything that's discussed, and a lot of the resources that are developed in the Facebook group were not in the original Synapse, because they didn't exist, or we didn't have access, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and also it's various communities and getting together, and yeah, also at the time, you could be next to each other but never met.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people say that there was like one electronic music modular weirdo in every town, and that was probably about it. Of course, I was in a bigger town, so we had a few more than that, but that's kind of a pretty fair description.
Yeah. And looking at it, and also when I came in San Francisco, I don't know, I attended the Gray Area Memorial for Buchla. I kind of got interested about the community here, and you look at San Francisco, so you've got Buchla, you've got Sequential, Serge here, and set up shop for quite a while. And then here nowadays we've got the community, between Resonant Frequency, Resident, Peaked. There's an electronic music community, a lot around Modular, not necessarily. Mm-hmm. That's quite interesting to see. I don't know, from the San Francisco Tape Music Center, which was like 2 or 3 friends saying, let's put our resource together after their music teaching, all the way to today, where you've got art schools and people, and still have the Karma in Stanford, the Mills College, Okay. So also, from your group, that's the idea. Say, well, why don't I put a timeline, because it was a little bit all confusing to me.
I was just gonna say, and you made this timeline, which is a fantastic thing, and I learned a lot, and I'm learning a lot from it, because I wasn't aware of all of those elements for sure.
Yeah, and also it's nice because people come to me and say, "Oh, what about these things, or what about this stuff?" And please, send it to me, any anecdote. And I don't want to have it as a full story. I just want to have these things happen at that time, and then that give you the enough information for you to go and research it. And somebody recommended me there's a book, San Francisco Tape Music Center, that talk about the around the 3 years of the Tab Music Center that had such an impact on everything. I'm reading it and quite a way through it. So one day I'll do maybe a show more on it.
Yeah, it's an interesting place, and of course, one of the things too is that right now, in the person of Ramon Sender, as well as Morton Subotnick, and perhaps others, but definitely in those two cases, we still have the real history makers here. Mort, of course, is still well known in this field. Ramon hasn't been involved in electronic music for decades, but he's still in the area and he's still involved. And I was lucky to be on a concert with him a year or two ago, I guess it was, which was a poetry and reading based concert. But nonetheless, we still have him here as well.
Yeah, and I was looking, I don't know, lucky he made a concert at the Grey Area, so I met him, I met Ramon Sander. Ramon doesn't make music anymore, he's more in writing. That was cool to meet them here in San Francisco. Also, it's interesting because from the book, I saw some old video from the San Francisco Tab Music Center with Pauline Oliveros and with just 2 oscillator, testing equipment, a little bit like Hangbach is doing nowadays. He's got testing equipment. So I just want to redo a couple of shout-outs. So here we had Caroline, Malarkey, Manifold Theory, Mariana, Dylan Sang, Darwin Arts, Peter Brutchman, Alpha Stair. In anything, didn't miss anybody. And please feel free to ask a question, and I'll relay them to Doug. I have a question from Dylan, and then just after, roughly we pass the half hour, I'll put together a couple of music video that I recorded from you at Robotic or Binary Society or Resonance Frequency, because we need to do a musical break. Nice to talk about music, but we need to hear it. So before that, Dylan was asking, when that second wave of electronic music came, for example, Kraftwerk, Gary Newman, Devo, etc., in the mid of late 70s, what was the feeling about that development?
I had a little noise on my side. Can you say that one more time, please?
Yeah, I think what Dylan is asking is that Kraftwerk, Gary Newman, Devo, in the mid to late 70s, you had the San Francisco tape music, where they were like kind of pioneer and even on such, so they were pioneer of electronic music, and then it started to pop started to come in, popular music with Kraftwerk, Gary Newman. So what was the feeling on the time, this transition from, I guess, electronic academic experimental music to more mainstream electronic music?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that there was a mixed thing over time, for me at least, and it's a very different experience for others, perhaps. I was extremely excited by both the early academic music that I heard, as well as the early applications of it in more rock and popular idioms. Like I was a huge fan of psychedelic music as a broad concept, and still am. And electronic music, whether intentionally or otherwise, dovetailed very nicely into that. So for me, it was a pretty easygoing thing. And even in the days of Synapse, which is later than what I've been talking about, it still continued to be a pretty nice parallel development, the way that electronic music and electronic instruments were being used. I think that there was a time, probably having to do, certainly having to do on the calendar, maybe with like the mid 80s, when when synth pop had been happening for some time, but all of a sudden the sampler, emulator, etc., Fairlight approach to it started happening. That was kind of when I felt a change in the development and in and how it kind of all felt as a whole. Um, I don't mean anything negative about any of it. I really loved the stuff that was being made. But one of the things that I think happened at about that time and started to happen was that many ways that synthesizers and electronic technology was being used became kind of invisible because many people wouldn't really necessarily recognize that the drums or the keyboards or the strings or the any number of things were electronic because they were so wonderfully accurate and appropriate in the way they were used in the arrangements and the mixes that it really became more invisible. So we reached a time when electronic music was more and more successful and kind of less and less obvious and known for it. Fortunately, I think we came back around and we have now continued the development that that could have happened but didn't have the support in the 80s. So, you know, all of the digital, all of the sampling, and all of the analog is all going forward. And so I think we're in a golden age. Maybe not golden, we're in the sweet spot. It's all happening.
I think I should play the little movie that I put together. So that's so we hear a little bit your music, and then we can talk about your music. So nice transition. So there's a couple of extracts when I attend, you know, open mic or public show. I try to record like 2 minutes of it, and people have memory of what was the event. Don't record the full stuff unless being asked. Okay. So this movie is a couple of extracts. So it's you were performing at Robot Speak in October 2015. I think that was for one of the anniversary of the creation of Robot Speak. Mm-hmm. At a show, Binary Society, in October 2016, that was, I think, organized by Danny.
And so this would have been the one in downtown San Jose behind the gaming place, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there was a Richard Devine also. And I've got one in Robot Speak in 2017. You will see it's interesting part. And the final one is Resonant Frequencies. That was last February. We launched that movie. All right, that was really nice. I see Tim Thompson join. Manifold Theory say it's amazing. I think that's quite cool. Yeah, that was really nice. I was chatting with Doug, and we were wondering who was doing the visual on the Binary Society. We were wondering if it was him. I saw you online, so maybe you can clarify if you are doing the nice visual on Binary Society.
Yeah, that
concert.
was. Yeah.
And on the Resonant Frequency, the visual were from Dirty Bill and Derek Sashbell.
Right.
So yeah, so this music is a good introduction to, I guess, tonalism. I think you wanted to talk a little bit more about, the style of your music and the inspiration and tonalism. So I just pull up this Wikipedia page about tonalism, which is a kind of art form. But what does it apply to modular, and what's your philosophy of making this music?
Well, I as a composer am really into contrast, and there's two main avenues that I've explored, and one is extremely noisy, and the other is tonally organized, though not necessarily obviously tonal. And I like them both very much, and I use them both. If you were to listen to on my Bandcamp site, if you were to listen to the album Modular Tonalism and listen to the album Up from Down, you would get, like a big show of that contrast. But so modular tonalism, I'm not sure what's on that page of tonalism, but modular tonalism, as I use it, is describing a form of minimalism. Minimalism, I mean, as a compositional style, a la, Steve Reich and Terry Riley and others. And the idea there was to use minimal compositional materials and create a lot out of how you manipulate them and contrast them and develop them. And so the idea of modular tonalism is to kind of mine some more of that part of music, but do it specifically in a way that only modulars can. And so that album is using techniques that I've been working on for all of these years. It was funny, speaking of Synapse, I came across a piece of an article that apparently I wrote at the request of Serge, and it was about the experience of learning a modular synthesizer. And this was never published, but I've been thinking about publishing it now. And it describes the techniques that I use today in modular tonalism, and that is, I use small sequence libraries of tones, or voltage values that relate to tones, pitches and pitch libraries, and then I manipulate them with sample and hold and clock divisions and things like this. And so that's the basic technology of modular tonalism as I've been exploring it, although certainly not the only way it could be explored. And I continue to do other things with it too. But it's a very interesting style to me because it's not like a typically melodic style, and it's not trying to play tunes or anything. It focuses on the interrelationships of pitches and melodic sequences and so forth, and not on the top-down concept of like playing over top of it or anything. It's all about that process that is used to make them and what the outcome of that process is.
Tim clarified that he was doing the camera work, and probably it was Dirty Bill Wachowski who was doing visuals on. Yes. Yeah, so also I was wondering, are you using the normal scale, or do you go microtonals?
Yeah, I've used microtonal in the past. There's a video online of me playing many, many years ago at Tom's place in Berkeley. And actually, I believe it was part of the Canonia Festival that got moved to Tom's Place because of a problem with the other venue. Anyway, that was done in quarter tone, and I had a lot of fun with that. It was a very difficult thing for me to do because I was using equipment that really wasn't that well suited to the concept, but I made it work and it was great. These days, I've been working with a definition of a scale that allows me about 1,490 scalar opportunities. The scales could be, like 3 or 4 notes. They could be, 8 or 9 notes, or they could be more typical. But they are all based on an equal tempered sort of a scale. So that's been the recent history. I have been thinking, though, very much recently about dipping back into the quarter tone world. I really like that. And I have equipment now that would be much better suited to it. So I've been considering doing a few pieces and some exploration in that microtonal world again.
No, that's interesting. I don't know, part of the experimental music, or sometimes I'm also on my side. So I'm crazy because I don't necessarily tune my oscillator, and it's more like by ear, and I don't know if I've got good ears. But I've got quantizers, so that put them in the scale, but I don't know if they are in the right tune.
Yeah.
At least the scale give me a kind of a mood, no major, minor.
Yeah, I recently also got a quantizer, and it works well. I haven't played with it too much. All these years I've been doing this hand tuning all of it, and that's still my preference because, of course, quantizers aren't going to get all of the kinds of scales that I like to work with. And I don't know. I like little fine adjustments as I'm tuning too, and I don't always feel like I'm getting quite the same thing. But I don't have that much experience with the quantizer, and for the number of things that it quantizes, or the number of ways it quantizes, it's very good. But it's certainly can't deliver all the things that I do otherwise.
That's cool. So I want to remind people, if you have got questions, then put them in chat or comment and see them. Also, give it a subscribe and like and follow and thing it. Twitch, Facebook,
Yeah,
Mixer, YouTube, Periscope too. So I guess we'll finish a little bit by. So you've got a part of your Serge in front of you, and maybe you could describe a little bit some of the component of your Serge.
Yeah. Let me see first of all if it's possible without screwing everything up.
Yes.
So yeah. So here in front of me is my original Serge from the 70s. I've named it the Mystery Serge, and then of course back here to somewhere like I used to be is the Euro Serge. Looks like I still need to get this adjusted a bit. And the original Serge and the LB version of Serge that I have are both very similar. And I favor some of the really early modules. I really, for instance, am a great big fan of the 1973 style envelope generators. And I know people are absolutely crazy about the universal slope generators, and they are wonderful. But I, started with these envelope generators, and I've always really liked them and preferred a couple of things about them. And those things specifically are, I really like that they have a hold function. I use it a lot. And I really like that they have a window output, which allows you to place a gate signal, along the the shape of the envelope. So you can, use it to tune where you want a pulse delay to happen, or any number of things. And
so you could use it as
I really
use it as a trigger to relaunch the envelope.
Well, yes, you can do that, because you can use it to the end cycle or the window output to re-trigger. But you can also use it, for instance, to trigger another envelope generators, and tune exactly where that happens. You can also, of course, use the fact that you're able to change kind of the pulse width of it, and use that for quite a few things too, even down to generating kind of a really easy and percussion sound that doesn't use too much real estate.
Indeed, I need to have a look at it, because I've been wondering just only about retriggering an envelope, having some gate along the way of the envelope could be quite interesting.
Yeah, well, the thing about Serge in general, and you say quite interesting because you can do this or maybe do that, and that's the whole thing about Serge, is that you really are given so many opportunities to repatch things and to use, unconventional input and output configurations and so forth. And it's what makes Serge so unique. It's also what makes Serge a little bit of a dense learning experience in some cases. But I think that the reason why I'm still using this system after all of these decades is because of that stuff. It's really an incredibly versatile thing, and the discoveries of what it could do were not, how can I put this? Serge made this incredible instrument, but he did not know all of the things that it could do. And that's not anything other than a wonderful statement, because that's the beauty of this, is that it's so, it can be used in so many different ways that it's a continual discovery. And that's an incredible design.
Yeah, it's interesting because people that design modules, not necessarily, they've got an idea of a couple of functions, and then somebody comes along and say, look what I can do with your module, or you could do that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the, I think, really great things about Serge as a designer, is that it wasn't an accident that happened with him. It was an intention. He didn't know all the things that might come out of it, but he built in the idea that you could find them. And that's why this idea of patch programmability was, an early spoke in the Serge wheel of technique, where you could not only get a module to do one thing, but you could patch it to do many other things. And one of the reasons, it's obvious why that's important from some points of view, but musically it's really important, because of that, Serge didn't call his modules music names. He called them electronic names mostly. He called, like a positive slew or a negative slew or a wave shaper, or a smooth function generator. Another manufacturer might have called the smooth function generator a portamento, because it does that. And that was the common musical usage for this concept. But Serge didn't want to have the opportunities to discover what his modules could do hidden behind a name that kind of instructed you how to use it. And these are some of the brilliant things that Serge did as an individual that really made his system open. It wasn't just the electronics, but it had a lot to do with how he viewed the whole system.
I saw a conversation, I don't know if it's Make Noise, but I forgot there was a conversation about somebody releasing a module and not saying, here is a module, and I'm not telling you what it does. You put some input, and the output function, figure it out. I don't know if it was Make Noise or somebody else. But that's also an interesting concept.
I hadn't heard about that, but that tickles my funny bone, I gotta say.
Yes.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I saw Matthew Friedrich also joined, and they also every time he asks you what envelope you're using, you say Serge, Serge envelope. Yeah, Matthew Friedrich.
Matthew, hi Matthew. Yeah. So he was asking what envelope I use.
No, every time he asks you what envelope you're using, you always answer a Serge envelope.
The 73, yeah. I do have others, by the way, and I do have a slope generator. It's a wonderful thing. Actually, mine's a little different than the more common one you see these days, in that mine has, and this is the LB version, has direct voltage control over both the rise and the fall, and both of them together. Whereas more commonly, and I'm not sure if in every case, but more commonly, that's a switchable thing, where you switch where the voltage control will be applied. So in this case, you can apply them all. And it is a great module. But yeah, and also, of course, the positive and negative slews originally were combined to make a simple envelope generator, and I still do that, and I still use them individually. So Serge provided many ways to generate envelopes, including the one called an envelope generator.
Yes, well, often people say, what else do I need to put on my modular? And they say more VCA, more envelope. Usually what shapes the music. I see we have passed the top of the hours. I like to keep a little bit the show to hours. I don't know, is there anything else you want to talk or about? And so I will do a recap of a little bit all the news and info.
Well, the one thing that I'd kind of like to say is that what you hear is a really cool format, and it's especially in this moment when people are in many places in a lockdown situation and concerts aren't possible and so forth. This is really great. It feels very good to be talking to you and feeling a little less isolated from the music world. So thanks for that.
Yes, I've been looking for a while of do more YouTube and streaming, and here came the occasion. Find the time and then put it on a regular basis. Glad you like it. Even if it's reopened, I'm gonna try to continue to keep it the form. Have it every week.
Yeah, I think it's a good format anyway, but certainly at this moment, it's extra special.
Yeah, and also sometimes we need a little bit of the music. I don't know, to recover from all the events that's happening and have a little bit of a parenthesis. What's happening outside? Be able to recharge, take care of you. Be able and face the world.
Yeah, it's definitely part of a coping toolkit to be a musician, I find. I don't know what other people do.
Also, sometimes, it's both way. You need some music to be able to recharge, and also I try to put emotion in the music that I do. Because I can play music correctly, and if you put emotion, then there will be slight variation that hopefully makes the piece a little bit more, whatever the emotions are.
Absolutely. It's a reflection of yourself, and so we're all pretty complicated, and the better we reflect ourselves, the more complicated that emotional theme in the music becomes.
Yeah, and that's it. So it was really awesome, Doug. You came on this show. We work out a little bit the technology. It's nice that we've got some internet and mobile phone, and we do that all these things. So I'm gonna do a little recap. So screens. So I don't know if you want to know more about me, there's a chimango.org. I wanted to say that Maurice M.0 has just released an album. He's a very great modular synth artist, very nice music. So he had a glitch period. The album was released yesterday. I haven't listened to it fully yet, but please grab it, and it's a free download. You had Robert Rich also that's just released an album. Pay as you wish. Name your price. It's quite nice. It's very ambient style. Robert Rich is known for we call it a sleep concert. That's very nice, relaxing. Monarchy also has started with a group of friends a new label, Error Grid, and they're starting to release it, so check it out. I'm doing this stuff, so it's thanks to all my modular community supporting people. Want to support what I'm doing, and in your name, please, and go on Bandcamp and be part of my community. I'm a subscriber. This Tuesday we've got at the laundry, virtual laundry. We do that every month on the second Tuesday of the month. That will be stream. But resident electronic music, the Manifold Theory, Atolian, M.0, and Justin and Manifold Theory. And then I would like to, and also Resonant Frequency is postponed this month, so Peak is still postponed until we can gather again together. Next one, but you can watch the previous concert of Peak. And I would say have a look at Net Noise, Doug site, where you can see all his music, and also you can read the past edition of Synapse magazine. Doug was he finished one last one, and also you've got you want encourage Doug making music, go to grab his last album. I think it's the last one. No, I think there was a there was also a collaboration with Arduck.
Modular Tonalism is my last solo album, but the last album was with Loop Quack.
And I know everything is closed, but do you have any project?
Well, I'm working in a relaxed sense with a few different people on a few different things. I have a lot of material to release of my own from recent times, but so I've been trying to do some organization of that to see really where, what would be the most effective way to get some of that out. And this has really been quite kind of a quiet time for me. I've been in and out of town a lot because I've been helping a friend elsewhere who's been ill. And so I haven't had, I've had a lot of time to think about music and a little less time to actually do anything about it hands-on. So that's a very different circumstance for me, but this is a very different time. So everything being different seems quite normal.
Yes. The only thing that doesn't change is a change.
Yeah, there you go. That much we can depend on.
Yes. All right, so I want to. Dylan Sang is saying thank you very much, Doug, for the insight and the history. Malaki is saying thanks. We've got we had Tim Thompson also. This is Tim is known for the Space Palette, a really interesting instrument.
And the Loopy Camp, which I think he was using in that that performance at Binary State, was the Loopy Cam instrument of his. Really a cool thing.
Yes. I think the Binary Society, I think Danny, I can't remember if he published, but at least you should be able to find some extract. a binary society. That was kind of maybe one of the first open mic in the Bay Area that I went to with the Church of the Super Surge at Robot Speak. We didn't talk too much about the church, but that was the extract that we saw to Robot Speaks. Church of the Super Surge. Well, I had Manifold Theory. Mariana was here. Darwin Arts, Alpha Star, Caroline, and Peter Bretschmann. Yes, and Peter here. Okay, so Peter says thanks a lot for all the input and writing to History Dog. Here for open mic opportunities.
I'm sorry that the screen I'm seeing this on is so far away and so small. I can't see any of the chat, but thank you for relating it to me.
Right, no worries. So thank you very much. So I'll see. Sorry, this video will be published, so you should be able to rewatch it nearly immediately. And next week, so Saturday 11 a.m., I will be receiving Nathan Moody. Nathan has done the mastering for N.0 album and done the mastering also for Back. So, and he's also a musician, locally, everything. Next week with Nathan Moody. All right, thank you very much, Doug, for joining us. That was really awesome. I hope to see you, I don't know, in the real soon.
I hope so too. I hope it won't be too long. And thank you much for having me, Franck. I'll see you soon. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And I hope to see all of you soon.
Right. Punching the hand. Thank you very much, everybody. Catch you next week.